Prosegue questa quarta
We are
giornata.
continuing this fourth day of EMA International 2022, and now we're going to talk about Comagarden, and we're with the Renato Cifarelli, the president. Good morning. It's a great EMA. What we're seeing is that it's a great EMA meeting like 2018. Well, let's talk about EMA Garden, EMA Green. Can you talk about this demo area that we have this year for the first time? Well, we have machines and technologies that are, if you like, more consumer-oriented. So we wanted to have a demo area where we could show off some machines, also where people can play around with the machines and sometimes also be able to see them in action, especially machines for with regard to maintenance, because EMA is a great fair for professionals, professional operators. So we want to give professionals the possibility of seeing machines and what can be done. Now let's talk about the market. The market is positive in the first half of the year. It's fallen off a little bit in the second half. We saw and have seen the data for the number of machines selling. In other words, what the builders sell to the retail market. We've had about 5% in fall of overall machines in the third quarter, September 2022. And we had forecast when we carried out the analysis that there would be a slight recovery in the last quarter, which probably we won't be able to obtain. But anyway, all told, we are in fact above the data of the pre-pandemic period, because you know that gardening and gardening tools in fact increased enormously in the pandemic. People didn't go out, people in fact worked in smart working, so they were able to look after their garden better, and therefore they had more incentive to do gardening and to buy machines. Sometime we were talking about brick or click. What about sales? I mean, how are sales going? Well, online trade and sales for some types of machines is growing. I'm convinced that what's going to happen is that there'll be a mix. Because as part of our sector, which is of course a very wide sector, we have professional maintenance people, for example, the groundsmen who look after public green, and then we have private buyers, and then we have machines which are combustion engine propelled, and then we have battery propelled machines, especially for the consumers, the private consumers. If you like, the motor, the engine, in fact, is a little more complicated to have a digital aspect. But if you have a battery-run machines, you don't really have many complications. Now, the EMA is increasingly international, and is there also international interest on the part of these international visitors to look at gardening and gardening machines? Yeah. The international aspect of EMA has always been international, and that includes the gardening machines. If you like, gardening machines still remain a niche market within EMA, but we've had lots and lots of visitors in the EMA Green stands of foreign people who sell small gardening machines and equipment. You have to remember also that there's a whole sector that is halfway between gardening and agriculture. You've got some machines that are used in gardening scenarios that in some areas that are used for agriculture. An example that everybody knows, for example, is an electric saw that is used in forestry, of course, or to prune. And again, pruning is something that you do in the garden, but also in agriculture. Now, finally, your sector too suffered somewhat with regard to the lack of delivery of pieces, components, right? I mean, then that in fact had a knock-on effect on the delivery machines, given the particular situation we're going through at the moment. Our sector, I think, suffered most, or one of the sectors that suffered most, because the supply chain for small machines involves the Asian countries, especially in terms of components and also as producers. There were many problems, therefore, in our sector. For example, chips had an important effect on electronic and battery-run machines. Things have turned around and been solved a bit late on because, in fact, this was because the market started to slow down. Now, you are an entrepreneur, even if you're president of Comagarden. Last year, there was some talk of, in fact, being more autonomous in Italy with regard to the production of components. Has that happened? Well, these are processes which require years and years. So companies have tried to go back to getting supplies from Europe. But obviously, you've got the supply chain, you've got the habits of Italian companies. For example, like our company, we have very few Asian suppliers, however, and only where we are actually forced, for various reasons, we have a sourcing of this type. But you need lots and lots of years. Give you an example of microchips. We all know that, in fact, many factories are shifting the US and Europe, but you need 4 or 5 years to build a microchip factory. And STM, for example, well, yes, they say, okay, we're making the investments, but it'll take some time. I don't know exactly how people can think that you can stick it up a factory, put in a couple of people, and there you are. But it takes a very long time. The idea, the concept is there. Many companies have reconsidered their supply chain. Thank you, President, for being with us, and thank you.